MSW Media. Thanks to Delete Me for supporting our show. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting cleanup20 to 64,000.
So yeah, now it's cleanup on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be cleanup on aisle 45.
Welcome to episode 210 of Cleanup on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Harry Dunn. Hey, AG.
Hey, Harry.
We have a lot to cover today, including an order from Judge Mehta limiting Oath Keepers and Proud Boys from entering D.C. and the Capitol that was quickly rescinded, the confirmation of Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem, and the DOJ wiping all January 6th evidence from the federal databases.
Oh, man, after all that work trying to get it up and expose the truth, they're just going to pull it down.
Yep.
All right. We also have an update on the criminal case against Mayor Eric Adams. It's not a good day for him. Formal Senate resolution is being drafted condemning the pardons of January 6th insurrectionists. Ooh, a formal resolution.
Yay, scary.
Yeah, get the comfy chair. And a Wall Street Journal editorial board review about why RFK Jr. is a disastrous choice to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. And it's nothing surprising about that, except that it's in the Wall Street Journal.
Exactly.
So, just want to put that out. Plus, it wouldn't be an episode of Cleanup on Aisle 45 without a Rudy Giuliani update. So we'll have that too. Rudy. But first, a note to our new patrons. This podcast is free, but your contributions help keep the lights on, so thank you. And since there were 5 Wednesdays in January, we'll be shouting you out next week. So you can sign up to become a contributing member at patreon.com/aisle45pod. That's AISLE 45POD. Harry, a little bird told me you just landed in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. I am happy to be back here in Wisconsin. And, a lot of people in our comments, I love to read the comments. I love, even on Blue Sky, like a lot of people want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved. What can I do? So I love the fact that you give people homework, AG. But I want to share with the people what I am actually doing right now. Here in Wisconsin, as you know, in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court, they are elected in Wisconsin. They are not appointed, and they are up for 10-year terms. So there's Wisconsin, a couple years ago, they just got the liberal majority, I think within the last 4 years or so.
In the last election with Janet Protasewicz, they flipped it. And
they were able to flip it liberal. However, they have a liberal justice that is not running for re-election. And somebody would say, why wouldn't, oh my gosh, in this times, we need our judges to stand, but this judge is 80 years old. The reason why I am here in Wisconsin is because there's a candidate that is pro-insurrection. He is praising Donald Trump for his pardons of the January 6th insurrectionists. He wants to take away Obamacare, and he is just what is the absolute worst of this country. So I am here to do press conferences here, talk with local media, and to use my platform that I didn't want, but I have now, to do what I can do to continue to fight for what's right, fight for the everyday people, fight for people that believe in democracy. So that's my assignment, and I am happy to be out here in Wisconsin doing that.
Awesome. I'm so glad you are. And thanks for bringing up the homework. I just want to thank all of the Cleanup on Aisle 45 listeners who heeded my homework assignment last week that I put up on Blue Sky to go and just spam the shit out of the OPM, what is it? DEAI truth at opm.gov mailbox. It's been reported now, and we talk about this on the Daily Beans yesterday, that mailbox has been overwhelmed with scripts of the B movie, emails of people concerned about mediocre white men getting DEI jobs with the government. So I want to thank everyone who contributed, because I know a lot of you did. So
yes, indeed.
You. All right. Let's start with the confirmation of Pete Hegseth and puppy killer Kristi Noem this past week. Despite having huge chunks of FBI interview information missing from the background check of Pete Hegseth given to senators by the Trump transition team, he was confirmed this week, with every single Democrat voting against. Plus, Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski joining the Democrats.
Surprise on the Mitch McConnell thing.
Right, but don't get too almighty thankful for him. He's retiring, so he's got nothing to lose. But J.D. Vance came in last minute, cast the first tie-breaking vote to confirm a Secretary of Defense in forever.
It's not off to a good start, you know.
No.
Man, I tell you, the Associated Press reports Pete Hegseth was sworn in Saturday as the nation's 29th Secretary of Defense, quickly joining President Trump's cabinet after a dramatic late-night vote in the Senate installed him as the Pentagon's leader. Hegseth took the oath of office from Vice President J.D. Vance in the Eisenhower Executive Office building with Hegseth's wife, Jennifer Ranchot, at his side, and Republican senators looking on. I was so frustrated about this. I saw this and the little smug on his face. It was just... But, the ceremony came less than 12 hours after Vance broke a 50-50 tie in the Senate to narrowly seal Hegseth's confirmation. Sad day.
Sad day. And the unusually narrow confirmation for a defense secretary came after questions from members in both parties over Hegseth's qualifications or lack thereof to lead the military, especially amid allegations of heavy alcohol abuse and aggressive behavior toward women. Democrats, the minority in the Senate, had helped confirm Secretary of State Mark Rubio and CIA Director John Ratcliffe in bipartisan votes, but they fiercely opposed Hegseth, with even the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee refusing to support him. And that wouldn't be even the top Democrat. That should be especially the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee should refuse to support him.
Yeah. Reacting to the vote, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer of New York said Republicans have entrusted the most powerful military in the world. That's one thing that don't get lost. America is our military is feared, and we have the most powerful military in the world, and it's in the hands of someone with no experience, terrible judgment, and serious flaws of character. Chuck Schumer goes on to say, I hope for the sake of our troops and the good of our country that he can eventually grow into the job. Not a job that you necessarily should have to grow into. What you think, AG?
No, yeah, there shouldn't be any OJT for
or the job training for you non-jarheads out there, Hegseth faced allegations that he sexually assaulted a woman at the Republican conference in California, though he has denied the claims and said the encounter was consensual. He later paid $50,000. That's consensual. $50,000 to the woman. Hegseth also promised during his confirmation hearings that he would not drink while on the job, were he to be confirmed.
If you have to promise not to drink on the job.
I was just about to say, my God.
And Democrats also helped confirm Kristi Noem. ABC News reports South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, the firebrand. We really need to retire that word.
Yeah.
The a-hole who gained the national spotlight during the coronavirus pandemic. I thought she gained the national spotlight when she shot a puppy in the face.
Yeah, not during the coronavirus. She killed her dog.
Right. Yeah, and a goat. She was confirmed by the Senate on Saturday to lead the Department of Homeland Security, keeping us safe from puppies, I guess. Noem won confirmation in a 59-34 vote, making her the fourth person confirmed to Trump's cabinet. Hegseth, as you said, was confirmed as defense secretary just hours earlier. The Department of Homeland Security already shut down the CBP One app, which allowed migrants to make appointments at the border to claim asylum, something Noem promised the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee she would do. Noem will oversee 22 agencies with more than 260,000 employees who work on issues ranging from the border to federal disaster management to the Secret Service.
Scary. She had 7 Democrats that vote for her. A.R., Fetterman, Hassan, Kane, Kim, Peters, Shaheen, and Slotkin.
Yeah, I don't get the Slotkin. I don't get any of the votes, honestly.
I feel like that was the odd one out, is the Slotkin one. And also, Tim Kaine too, a little bit. I even listened to Tim Kaine's line of question, and I was able to watch some of his. I feel like he wants to say yes to people. Some people are going in there with their absolutely not. No way I'm voting for anybody that Trump nominates. But I feel like in Kaine's line of questioning, this is particular with Pam Bondi, I feel like he wants to say yes, wants to feel comfortable saying yes. So I didn't see Kristi Noem's hearing, so that may be a little surprising there.
Yeah, if I'm a Democrat and I have to dig for reasons to say yes to somebody at a cabinet level position, I already want to be dazzled.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to dig for, she didn't shoot a puppet. No, she did. Her kids are still alive. Okay. All right.
Okay. There we go.
There we
That's
go.
it.
Like, oh, come on, man. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel for reasons to vote yes here. And I am really looking to our Democratic leaders to stand up a little bit firmer against everything that's going on and speak out a little bit louder. Some of them are, Schumer was railing against that. But then he said, I hope he grows into the job. I'm like, dude, it's really, really
I don't know if that was like sarcasm there. I mean, one would hope, but.
I would hope.
Yeah.
We've got Daniel Goldman, who is speaking out about this, AOC. We've got a lot of pretty strong voices. I'd like to see more. And, I figure since, I'm not gonna criticize First of all, I'm never going to not vote for a Democrat, but
sure.
I'm not going to criticize Democrats before elections. But right after elections, I think that's the best time to
criticize
to do better.
Yes.
And I'll put caveat on it every single time. You need to do better. I will vote for the Dem no matter what. I promise. I will have loyalty to this party.
Absolutely.
But could you, I don't know, be a little angry on our behalf? Everyone seems to be just kind of sitting back and going, well, just let them burn it down, and then hopefully that'll make us win later.
Maybe they need the firebrand.
Yeah, let's move firebrand over to the Democrats.
Over to the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah, no one ever says firebrand Chuck Schumer.
Never. Those words would never be in a sentence together,
No, they wouldn't. All right, we have a lot more news to get to today, but we have to take a quick break. So everyone stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring our show. You can take control of your data online and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting cleanup20 to 64,000. Did you know your personal data, like your home address, phone number, email, and even your family details and relatives and their information is likely being sold online by data brokers? They gather this information, they scrape the web for it, and they sell it without your permission or your knowledge. It's unsettling, and it puts you at risk. As someone who is an active online presence and has some opinions, I feel the vulnerability of having my information exposed. And it's not just inconvenient. It can lead to serious real-world issues like identity theft and scams, harassment. So I recently found a solution. It's a service called Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. Their process is straightforward. You sign up, specify what you want removed, and their team handles the rest. They even send personalized privacy reports that show you what data they found, where they found it, and what they have successfully removed. Plus, they tell me how many hours of time I have saved myself having to do it on my own without them. They do the heavy lifting. And what sets Delete Me apart, it's year-round protection. They're always monitoring and removing your information, ensuring your privacy stays intact. It's simple. It's an effective way to safeguard yourself and your loved ones from the growing risks of the digital world. So take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting cleanup20 to 64,000. That's text cleanup20 to 64,000. Cleanup20 to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
All right, y'all. Welcome back. Let's talk about another tragic cabinet nominee. Trump's pick to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. I know everybody's been waiting for us to talk about this one. RFK Jr. This week, the Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote the following. The Wall Street Journal, remember that. President Trump nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary in return for his presidential endorsement. But Senate Republicans have an obligation to scrutinize his giant closet of business conflicts and dubious ideas. Mr. Kennedy is scheduled to appear before the Senate Finance Committee on Wednesday. Expect him to obfuscate about his ties to trial lawyers, anti-vaccine views, and support for sundry progressive causes.
Yeah. And keep in mind, all right, like we said, this is a Wall Street Journal. This is a Rupert Murdoch joint. And the Wall Street Journal editorial board is not exactly liberal. In fact, they spend a little time here bad-mouthing Dr. Fauci in this article. I'm going to leave those parts out. and focus on what they have to say about RFK Jr., because the two men are nothing alike, despite what the Wall Street Journal says here. It goes on to say, most troubling is RFK Jr.'s long record of anti-vaccine advocacy. I wouldn't call that advocacy. I would call it, I don't know, idiocy.
I like idiocy better.
Right. In the past, he has claimed that the measles vaccine causes autism, despite reams of studies. And when they say reams of studies, they mean every single study ever done that have found no causative link. And that the polio vaccine might have killed more than the actual virus, which is ridiculous. Deadly infectious diseases disappeared because of better hygiene and not vaccines, according to him. He has tried to soften his vaccine skepticism since being nominated, and he now says he won't take away anyone's vaccines. Yeah, well, the Supreme Court nominees said they wouldn't take away Roe v. Wade either. He says that was, by the way, that was me, not the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
He says he merely wants to ensure that vaccines are safe and thoroughly studied. Who doesn't? And that Americans have access to more information. In Mr. Kennedy's case, this means opening the industry to lawsuits by the trial bar.
Mr. Kennedy is saying that we got better soap, so we're not getting sick by these diseases anymore.
Yeah, polio was eradicated because we got zestfully clean.
Purex hand sanitizer, my God.
Yeah.
Mr. Kennedy's nomination disclosures show he's received millions of dollars from referring clients to Wisner Baum and Morgan & Morgan law firms. They have sued vaccine and drug makers. Wisner Baum spearheaded litigation against Merck over its Gardasil vaccine, which protects against HPV, one of the biggest risk factors for cervical cancer. Congress established the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program in 1986 for children's vaccines because an avalanche of litigation was driving manufacturers from the market. The program allows patients who believe they've been harmed by vaccines to file claims with the government for compensation, which are adjudicated in special vaccine courts.
Oh, vaccine courts. Okay. And yeah, by the way, Gardasil, incredible. Absolutely incredible vaccine. I am a survivor of cervical cancer, and it's been 26 years cancer-free.
Love that for you.
Thank you. So
yes.
Why do vaccines, this is back to the journal, why do vaccines receive more liability protection than medicines? For one, the population of potential plaintiffs is much larger for children's vaccines than for any other medical product. Juries are especially sympathetic when it comes to children, so payouts and potential liability are also much higher. If patients don't like the vaccine court judgment, they can still sue manufacturers in federal court, but they rarely do, since the standard for proving claims is higher in federal court. But as HHS secretary, Mr. Kennedy could take action to assist his trial lawyer pals. That's a big conflict of interest.
Absolutely, I would say so. The HHS secretary can add or remove vaccines from the compensation program, as well as specify injuries eligible for compensation. Removing vaccines from the program would open up manufacturers to mass torts based on weak evidence, including animal studies and scattered human cases that purport to link injuries to the shots. Profit margins on vaccines are typically thin, especially for those off patent. Companies facing enormous legal expenses and potential damages might stop making vaccines, which is what happened in the 1980s.
So he gets his buddies, he takes off the list, he puts on more symptoms, allows more people to sue, and then people want to stop making vaccines. All right, making more injuries eligible for compensation despite lack of causative evidence, for example, autism for measles, would also invite more claims, which I think is what I just said. Thanks, Wall Street Journal. This could bankrupt the program, which is funded by an excise tax on vaccines. That means Congress would have to increase the excise tax, which is paid by you and me, or backfill the compensation fund, which they won't because they want to give themselves tax breaks instead.
Yep.
Another danger is that Mr. Kennedy could turn over vaccine proprietary data in Food and Drug Administration filings to trial lawyers posing as vaccine safety advocates. Lawyers could use this information to claim that vaccine makers concealed evidence of side effects, as plaintiffs do in the Gardasil lawsuits, even if the FDA concluded they weren't caused by the vaccine. Now, it's true that some rare vaccine side effects come to light after a vaccine is approved. The FDA recently added Guillain-Barré syndrome as a potential side effect of RSV vaccines, with an increased incidence of roughly 1 in 130,000. the Trump HHS could build a better system, perhaps with private health groups like the Mayo Clinic, to monitor potential safety risks. I'm against that. That's a very Wall Street Journal thing to say, but continue.
Yeah, right. I think you pointing out that this is a very Wall Street Journal thing to say. So even though the Wall Street Journal is showing their bias, they're being, very skeptical about Mr. Kennedy here.
Right. Their solution is to get private corporate healthcare to monitor these. My solution is to have the fucking the gosh darn Health and Human Services Department to monitor these. Like the government do regulation instead of the private healthcare sector, because they focus on a bottom line, whereas the government focuses on health outcomes.
Sure, but Mr. Kennedy's intimation that vaccines haven't been thoroughly studied and that the FDA is concealing safety information to protect manufacturers is false, of course. Developers would have to enroll millions of patients in trials to identify very rare side effects, which would be impossible. The FDA recently halted enrollment in several infant RSV trials after Moderna found that babies who received its experimental jab became sicker than those with the placebo. This shows safety monitoring is working. The risk is high that Mr. Kennedy will use his power and pulpit at HHS to enrich his trial lawyer friends at the expense of public health and medical innovation. It's telling that Mr. Kennedy hasn't agreed to stop taking payments from these allies in the Gardasil lawsuit. Senators would be wise to believe that RFK Jr.'s career of spreading falsehoods rather than his confirmation conversions.
Yeah, agreed. And that's another very Wall Street Journal thing to say. About the infants that received the Moderna, found that babies who received its experimental jab.
I was just about to say the jab is telling, right? Anybody that refers to it as jab, you already know what they're thinking. Got your jab yet?
All right, Wall Street Journal. But it's really interesting that they come at this from kind of a late stage capitalist point of view, where he's got friends who sue pharmaceutical companies for a living, and he can make it easier for them to do that and line their pockets while at the expense of public health.
And I think that's the point. Obviously going around to Trump's White House, there's corruption everywhere. Mm-hmm. But I think what the Wall Street Journal is getting at here is he's nuts with his conspiracy theories about these side effects and the removal of vaccines. We need to keep these vaccines because they work.
Mm-hmm. And I know that in the hearing, they're going to bring up what happened in Samoa. And I know that at least the Democrats are, and they're going to bring up his absolutely unqualified nature. Maybe somebody will talk about how he sawed the head off of a beached whale and strapped it to the hood of their car with his daughter inside.
Unbelievable.
Somebody who's boasting about good hygiene, preventing sickness, you're putting a dead whale head carcass on the roof of your car.
It make sense.
And the daughter was telling, I can't remember what magazine she was talking to. She's like, and all the gross insides.
It was rolling down the window. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We're as grossed out as you are now listening to this.
Super healthy for a child, probably. But no, this was, I'm glad that the Wall Street Journal did this, because that was something that I hadn't thought about. The fact that he could make it easier for his lawyer buddies, who he's still getting payments from and has accepted millions of dollars from in the past, to sue these pharmaceutical companies for vaccines by, adding side effects to the list of possible issues that happen, so that people, to increase the torts. And generally Republicans want to decrease torts, right? They want to stop people from being so litigious, but
that's what
not
we
him.
think, right?
He's going to make money off of this. And somebody, I hope, is going to be watching his bank account for deposits from these two law firms. And well, if we hear of it, about it, we'll definitely let you know. Not sure that has to be put out on open secrets or anything.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be to a campaign.
It'd be right to him.
It would just be to some, private, the RFK Jr. entity, probably somewhere offshore.
Yeah.
To disguise where the payments come from. All right. So again, thanks to the Wall Street Journal for pointing that out, because it's something I hadn't thought of. We did have to dodge a few conservative bullets in that article, but appreciate you letting us read it to you. All right. We have more news to get to, but we have to take another quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Clean Up on Aisle 45. All right, let's talk about the commutations of seditious conspiracists.
Here we go. Let's get into it.
This past week, Judge Amit Mehta, reversed his recent move, barring Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes and a dozen others who January 6 seditious conspiracy sentences were commuted last week by Trump. He barred them from visiting Washington, D.C. without the court's permission, and he wouldn't let them go to the Capitol. One sort of supersedes the other. If you can't go to D.C., how do you get to the Capitol?
Yeah.
But they have tunnels, but they're not that long. So let's go over the background as detailed in Judge Mehta's most recent order. Mehta writes, in the fall of 2022 and winter of 2023, 2 juries convicted the following 9 defendants of various crimes related to the events of January 6, 2021. Stuart Rhodes, Kelly Meggs, Kenneth Harrelson, Thomas Caldwell, Jessica Watkins, Roberto Menuda, Edward Vallejo, David Morshell, and Joseph Hackett. Each defendant was a member of or affiliated with a militia group known as the Oath Keepers. All but one, Caldwell, were found guilty of seditious conspiracy or conspiracy to prevent members of Congress from discharging their duties. The court sentenced the defendants to various terms of incarceration ranging from time served for Caldwell to 18 years in prison for Stuart Rhodes. All except Caldwell received a period of supervised release to follow their term of incarceration.
On January 20th, Donald Trump commuted the sentences of these 9 defendants, alongside pardoning over 1,000 others convicted of January 6 related offense. According to the proclamation issued by the president, he commuted the sentences of defendants to time served as of January 20th, 2025. Defendants then in custody were immediately released. Ugh.
Yeah, Judge Mehta continues. Afterwards, all relevant actors proceeded as if the commutations addressed only the custodial portions of the defendant's sentence, but not their terms of supervised release. U.S. probation officers began supervising the defendants. Defense counsel moved to change the conditions of release. The U.S. Department of Justice responded to the modification request, and the court granted the motions without opposition from the prosecution. Defendant Rhodes publicly declared he would, quote, report to his probation officer, unquote.
On January 24th, 2025, the court issued an order amending defendants' conditions of release, except Caldwell's, who had none, to add 2 location restrictions. The order provided that the defendants must stay away from 1, the District of Columbia, and 2, the U.S. Capitol and its surrounding grounds, absent permission from the court. The court did not impose the location restriction when sentencing defendants because at the time it was not the practice of the local probation office to recommend them as special conditions of release. That practice later changed, and the judges of the court began requiring January 6 defendants to stay away from the district and the U.S. Capitol. Soon after the president's proclamation, this court consulted with the probation office about imposing the stay-away conditions, and after receiving confirmation they were appropriate, issued the order of the morning of January 24th, 2025.
Hours later, the U.S. Department of Justice, through the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, moved to vacate the order and dismiss the defendants' terms of supervised release. See United States motion to dismiss the terms. The department argues that defendants, quote, are no longer subject to the terms of supervised release and probation following President Trump's commutation of their sentences. According to the Department of Justice, the term sentence is broadly construed to include both custodial and non-custodial components. Thus, when President Trump commuted the defendants' sentences, his action rendered their terms of supervised release no longer active. The motion concludes not with a request for relief, but with an indication that the order must be vacated. That's from Ed Martin, the new U.S. Attorney.
If I can for a second, I want everybody to think about this for 1 second. The Justice Department is representing the Oath Keepers in court. Like, that's literally, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit or a challenge Judge Mehta's ruling on behalf of the Oath Keepers. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's just, my God. The president's clemency powers are broad, and the Constitution places few limitations on them. So long as the president does not use the power to pardon to violate another provision of the Constitution, Congress and the judiciary have zero power to interfere with this exercise. While a pardon generally negates the effects of an underlying conviction, a commutation leaves the conviction in place and lessens the sentence in some way. Rather, a prisoner who receives a presidential commutation continues to be bound by judicial sentence. The commutation changes only how the sentence is carried out by switching out a greater punishment for a lesser one.
Yep, and applying the foregoing principles here means that the defendant's original sentences, including their terms of supervised release, remain intact. President Trump's commutation does not alter the court's and the jury's judgments. It affects only their execution. The question remains whether the executive branch must carry out the judicially imposed periods of supervision. The answer turns on the text of President Trump's proclamation. The court finds that the Department of Justice's reading of the proclamation as both reducing the defendant's custodial sentences and doing away with their terms of supervised release is reasonable. The proclamation states that President Trump commutes the sentences of defendants to time served as of January 20th, 25. The department's reading is further supported by the fact that President Trump's commutation order is unconditional.
It is not for this court to define why President Trump commuted defendants' sentences or to assess whether it was sensible to do so. This is Judge Mehta's ruling. The court's sole task is to determine the act's effective insofar as the U.S. Department of Justice seeks to dismiss defendants' supervised release terms. The request is denied. The president's act of clemency did not alter this court's original sentences, which remain intact. The court, however, will vacate its order of January 24th, 2025, adding location restrictions, because it would be improper for the court post-commutation to modify the original sentences. Further, by virtue of the president's commutation order, the court acknowledges that its conditions of supervision will not be enforced.
So he finishes by saying, accordingly, the U.S. Department of Justice's motion is granted in part and denied in part. The court will not dismiss the non-custodial portion of the defendant's sentences, but the defendants are no longer bound by the judicially imposed conditions of supervised release. Kind of a splitting of the hairs there, but Judge Mehta agrees with the Department of Justice that Trump's proclamation relieves these seditionists from having to serve post-incarceration like probation and supervised release.
I'm wondering, they saw that Donald Trump is going to be giving a joint address to Congress in March. And I almost guarantee, I bet somebody lunch that they're going to be somebody's invited guest to sit up in the gallery. Ugh. What a mockery and what a shame for my former coworkers.
They're rearrested, the recidivism rate's pretty high. It's only been a few days and 3 of them are already been rearrested. And
one is dead. One got shot, killed during a traffic stop in Indiana, I believe. But I just thought about this, like those individuals, the Oath Keepers, if like I said, I'm willing to bet my lunch that you know me, I like my lunch. But I'm willing to bet
Would you bet your bourbon though?
That's tough. I don't know about my bourbon. But those individuals, when you come into the Capitol, are going to have to be screened by police. And they are going to submit themselves to Capitol Police for security screening, which you go through the magnetometers. And they're going to be officers who might have been there on January 6th screening those individuals. And if that doesn't make you cringe and your blood boil, then, you got more homework to do from Allison.
Yeah, well, there's even more, right? Because CNN writes that as Trump this week sought to rewrite the history of his supporters' attack on the Capitol, a database detailing a vast array of criminal charges and successful convictions of January 6 rioters was removed from the DOJ's website. The searchable database served as an easily accessible repository of all the January 6 cases prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. Judges over the past few days have pushed back on what they've called Trump's whitewashing of the mob's attack of the Capitol as the administration quickly wound down cases against some of the most violent rioters who injured police. The DOJ's site removal was celebrated by those convicted for their actions on January 6th and their supporters.
Of course.
And Harry, this goes further. When you commute their sentences, pardon them, and then celebrate them, I mean, I can't think of a better recruiting tool for domestic violent extremists in the United States.
Especially when Donald Trump is the president. Donald Trump supports us, guys. Look, He got us out of jail. He's told us to stand back and stand by. We're still here. Christopher Wray called us domestic terrorists, but we're walking the streets. And look, we got guns too. So we're domestic terrorists with guns, according to Christopher Wray. And it's scary. Like, I mean, I want to laugh at this because it's like, no way, right? But it's really scary that this is the DOJ we have for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, it is. And that Ed Martin is a real piece of work at the U.S., at the D.C. USAO,
My
U.S. Attorney's
God,
Office in D.C.
Yeah, he is.
All right. Well, we do have a little bit more news to get to. The next block is a little happier in tone, especially if you are in the group of people who don't like Rudy Giuliani.
Yes. I feel like that's that's the majority of our listeners here.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to go over that and a little bit about Eric Adams, but we're going to take one last quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back, y'all. We're back, and we have a quick update on a couple of your favorite New Yorkers. I say that jokingly, y'all. I know. Right? First, New York City Mayor Eric Adams loses his second request for an evidentiary hearing on his allegations that prosecutors leaked grand jury information. The brief ordered from Judge Dale Ho reads, before the court is defendant Mayor Adams' renewed motion for an evidentiary hearing and sanctions under Rule 6. Mayor Adams alleges that the government and its agents have leaked confidential grand jury information, namely the name and testimony of grand jury witnesses, to one or more reporters at the New York Times. He asked this court to hold an evidentiary hearing regarding the circumstances of the alleged leaks and individuals involved, and thereafter impose appropriate sanctions on the government up to and including the dismissal of the indictment. For reasons explained below, Mayor Adams' motion is denied.
Denied. And try again, Mayor Eric Adams. And by the way, the reasons below for why this motion is denied are that Eric Adams failed to show any proof whatsoever of any leak. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to bet my lunch. I would actually bet my bourbon.
Okay.
That's how we know. Is it your lunch or your bourbon?
Yeah.
That's how confident you are. That these leaks were from his colleagues' lawyers to the New York Times so that he could come out and say the Department of Justice leaked to the New York Times as a pretext to try to get this thing dismissed. If he doesn't already know that it's always the defendant's lawyers that leak to the press.
That do the leaking,
Yeah. Come on. We couldn't even get volume 2 of the Jack Smith report, and you think the DOJ is full of leakers?
Prosecutors are so tight-lipped. Like, they don't talk anything. Like, they don't talk like nothing.
Dude, most of the country didn't even know Trump was under investigation until early 2022 when he was in investigation the first week after he was ousted. So anyway, funny. Haha, too bad, Eric Adams. The case goes on. Now, if you thought we were done with Rudy Giuliani updates because he settled with Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, you would be mistaken. And I do want to give a content warning here because there's some absolutely disgusting behavior that is outlined in this lawsuit. This is from Law and Crime. A week after Rudy Giuliani settled a protracted legal dispute with 2 Georgia election workers he defamed to the tune of $148 million, the former personal attorney to Donald Trump is once again facing legal peril as a woman claiming to be his former employee alleges she was repeatedly sexually battered by Rudy Giuliani. The former New York City mayor's accuser, Noelle Dunphy, sued Rudy Giuliani and his business in Manhattan Supreme Court on Thursday. She claims that what seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity role as Giuliani's director of business development at $1 million a year quickly took a sordid turn after she was hired in January of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, for a young person like that, $1 million a year, it's like, wait a minute, this is a hell of an opportunity. But it goes on to say Giuliani began abusing Ms. Dunphy almost immediately after she started working for the defendants. The 68-page complaint states, he made clear that satisfying his sexual demands, bear with me, guys, I'm disgusted reading this, which came virtually anytime, anywhere, was an absolute requirement of her employment and of his legal representation. Giuliani began requiring Ms. Dunphy to work at his home and out of hotel rooms so that she would be at his beck and call. He drank morning, noon, and night and was frequently intoxicated, and therefore his behavior was always unpredictable.
This goes on to say, Giuliani also took Viagra constantly. Just so the whole world knows, he needs Viagra.
Yeah, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I know, I'm sorry. The complaint continues. While working with Ms. Dunphy, Giuliani would look to Ms. Dunphy, point to his erect penis, and tell her that he could not do any work until, quote, you take care of this, unquote. Dunphy claims to have copious evidence backing up her accounts in the form of text messages and consensually recorded conversations. Her complaint screenshots several of these alleged text exchanges. Quote, I'm dreaming about you, Giuliani said, according to the complaint. And another, he appears to ask Dunphy, can I shower with you?
How about you just shower by your damn self? First of all, God,
please just take a shower.
What a smelly
shit
man.
off your face.
You know, Dunphy claims that she has a recording of Giuliani promising to give her $300,000 if she would forego her legal rights in connection with her pending case and F me like crazy. In another recorded chat from February 23rd, 2019, Giuliani allegedly told Dunphy that he could get into trouble with underage girls if they were 16 but looked 20, according to the complaint. Those are far from the only damaging statements Dunphy claims to have of the former mayor on tape.
On tape. Quote, in addition to his sexual demands, Giuliani went on an alcohol-drenched rant. He went on many alcohol-drenched rants that included sexist, racist, and anti-Semitic remarks, which made the work environment unbearable. That's what her complaint states. Quote, many of these comments were recorded. Dude, release the tapes. Dunphy claims,
the tapes.
Yeah, release the tapes. Release them now. Dunphy claims that Giuliani first forced her to have sex with him in February of 2019 after insisting that she spend the night in the guest suite of his Manhattan apartment. Upon arriving at his home, Dunphy was surprised to see that Giuliani had poured alcoholic drinks for the two of them. Now, after a few drinks, Dunphy said she went to the guest room alone to take a shower, but when exiting the bathroom, she was startled to see Giuliani had come into the room uninvited. Quote, Mrs. Dunphy was frightened. She said she wanted to get dressed, unpack, and settle in. She asked for privacy. She said she would meet him in the living room when she was ready. But Giuliani would not leave. He pulled down his pants. Giuliani then pulled her head onto his penis without asking for or obtaining any form of consent. He held her by her hair. It became clear to Miss Dunphy that there was no way out of giving him oral sex. She did so against her will.
Yeah, again, guys, we are as disgusted as you are. Yeah, hearing this, it's terrible. Dunphy's lawsuit. And also, by the way, screw Rudy Giuliani. Like, she deserves, like, Miss Dunphy, you know, I hope Rudy has to pay for all of this. Dunphy's lawsuit alleges 22 causes of action against Giuliani, including sexual battery claims under New York's Adult Survivors Act. That's the law that suspended the statute of limitations on claims for sexual assault, which E. Jean Carroll cited to bring sexual abuse claims against Trump. A jury awarded Carroll $5 million in May. I mean, like, yeah, I get that people are getting this money, but these people need to be behind bars too. Mm-hmm. Well, the case is civil, but not criminal in nature. Dunphy is accusing Giuliani of first and third degree rape, first and third degree sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, and forcible touching. She is seeking $10 million.
Yep. Now, if any of this sounds familiar, it should, and I'm sorry that this sounds familiar. Dunphy had initially filed suit against Giuliani way back in May of 2023, and we talked about it on this show. But a judge in October of 2024 ordered certain allegations be struck from the complaint because they were irrelevant or inadmissible. Such claims included allegedly racist and sexist remarks about well-known female politicians, alleged anti-Semitic comments, alleged attempts to sell pardons from during Trump's first term, and references to the Borat movie in which Giuliani appeared. And so the judge said, these allegations have to be struck from this lawsuit. They're impermissible and not relevant to your case. So she did, and she's refiled with Manhattan Supreme Court.
You know, good for her. Good for her for pursuing this, continuing to. Like I said, I mean, yeah, obviously the civil suits are great, but he belongs in jail if these allegations turn out to be true, which I have no reason, based on your track record, Rudy Giuliani, to not believe it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if there are any criminal referrals. This is, like you said, a civil suit, not criminal. But she did bring up the battery and rape allegations in her civil suit for civil liability.
Yeah.
But who knows whether Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA, will look into criminal charges for this. I don't know the statute of limitations. I'm not as familiar with New York law. But we do know, I mean, if this all happened in 2019, that could be past the statute of limitations.
Sure.
But because of the Survivors Act in New York, that opened a window for civil claims that go back for how it suspended statute of limitations for civil claims, which is, again, like you said, what E. Jean Carroll cited to get her $5 million and then $83 million settlement subsequent. All right, everybody, that is your Rudy Giuliani update. I'm sorry it was more disgusting than fun this time. Which is why I gave the content warning at the beginning. So yeah, we've got all of that. We got the Dunphy stuff. We got Whalehead sloshing around. It's a pretty gross show as far as political podcasts go.
But we're dealing with gross people, AG, and we are here to cover the news for you all. Yeah, we don't take pleasure in this, guys.
No, but thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being patrons to all our patrons. If you want to become a patron and support us, we could use it. Just do so at patreon.com/aisle45pod, AISLE45POD. And Harry, you and I will set up our very next Q&A Zoom happy hour call. That was super fun. So we'll be looking at that probably in the third week of February, something like that. We'll send out email notifications to everyone to the email account that you signed up to Patreon with. So make sure to check your junk.
Check your junk.
Check your junk. Probably around the second, third week of February.
Can't wait. I love it. This will only be my second one, but it's already my favorite thing. So
awesome. So what are you going to do? And what are you doing tonight in Wisconsin? You check out the Hotel Bar, see what they got?
Well, they do have some good bourbon, but I was told that this hotel specifically, it's called the Saint Jane, I think, in Milwaukee. They have great cheese curds. So that's what I'm looking for. Cheese
that's
curds. That's
one of my favorite things.
I dip them in ranch. So I'm just like, yeah.
I'm a marinara with my cheese curds.
I'll do both. Like a one in ranch, one in marinara. Like, my God.
You could actually probably make a really good ranch marinara sauce.
Oh man, I'm hungry.
Like mix them together.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, don't bunch your lunch quite yet. So you can go get some of those cheese curds.
Oh.
A little bit of bourbon. All right, my friend, it's been wonderful to see you. I'm glad you made it safely to Wisconsin. And I hope you kick much ass there. Because
thank you, dear. I appreciate you. And I meant to say earlier when you said, hey, thank you, Harry, for reminding me, everybody, about homework. And I'm like, wait, guys, I wasn't that guy in high school or school that reminded the teacher, hey, we don't have any homework. Hey, shut up.
This is good trouble. No,
absolutely.
This is good trouble.
No, great show. Always great chopping it up with you. And thanks to all our listeners.
Yeah, we'll see you all the patrons at least this weekend on the bonus episode. See the rest of you next week. I've been Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.